Regular meeting of council to order at 3 p.m. for September 23rd.
Please note that council meetings are streamed live and recorded on YouTube. Attendees acknowledge that in accordance with Section 17(2)(g) of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, names, addresses, and other details provided when speaking at a council meeting will be publicly shared. Should you have any questions related to the collection or disclosure of your personal information, please contact the Legislative and Advisory Services Division for the Town of High River by sending an email to foip@highriver.ca. That's foip@highriver.ca.
Thanks, Jody. Adoption of the agenda. I'll ask Councillor Kinghorn for a motion that council adopt the agenda for this regular council meeting September 23rd as presented.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. You have my motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Previous minutes approvals. Ask for a motion from Councillor Walsh that an omnibus motion adopts the following in accordance with Council's procedure bylaw, the September 9th regular council meeting minutes as presented and the strategic priorities chart.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Public comments. Anybody wish to share any comments prior to on agenda items? I'll just get your full name, please, ma'am.
You might have to switch those.
Okay. If you don't mind just holding that one. Thank you.
Perfect.
So this is to the Mayor Snodgrass and Council. And I would refer your answers to the end of my presentation. I'm going to be referring to the strategic priority chart, the aquatics expansion. And these are questions I have pertaining to the above report. The parking assessment report. Has there been a parking assessment report on the additional traffic anticipated for this project? And if you are planning to spend $14 million, shouldn't all issues be thoroughly planned and assessed before borrowing and before awarding contracts? If so, can I get a copy of this said report, and can you ensure that this report is placed online for all resident taxpayers to see? 2, how can this pool bylaw be passed on the above pool expansion when A, the budget has not been passed for this project, and this should have been a line item of the budget of 2024, and transparency would require that such would include amortization costs to the taxpayer over the lifetime of the loan for 30 years. The conditions for a borrowing bylaw under the MJA are clear, and one of them is that borrowing must be reflected in the budget. Is this a debenture, which means an unsecured loan issued by a company backed by general credit rather than specific assets by the province? If so, what has the set rate been calculated at, and what is the set payment? This is information that the town residents should know, and you should know before putting this bylaw forward. And such information should have been included in the preamble of the bylaw. If this is a mortgage, the taxpayers need to know if the mortgage is fixed or open mortgage, and who is the financial institution that it would be acquired from. This also should have been included into the bylaw. The ability to avoid a variable rate mortgage should have been reviewed as well before going this route. The actual interest rate is not reflected in the bylaw, and the impact that we put on citizens annually and overall that they are paying for. This also should have been included into the bylaw. What are these people going to do because of this council's decision to go into debt with this pool expansion on the backs of the taxpayers of this town? Please note, Municipal Government Act, Section 254, Capital Projects. No municipality may acquire, remove, or start the construction or improvement of a capital property that is to be financed in whole or in part through a borrowing, unless the borrowing bylaw that authorized the borrowing is passed. This bylaw that the town of High River has put forward has not been passed yet, nor is it transparently worded for the benefit of the taxpayers. The bylaw has only had first reading, and as people of this town have noticed, this project had already commenced well before this bylaw from the town was initially put forward August 12th, 2024, which is in violation of Section 254 of the Municipal Governance Act. From what we can read, we have also been awarded contracts for the various aspects of construction. Lastly, in case you have overlooked this, there has already been a referendum on this project. The results were that the project was defeated. Whether binding or not, it reflects what the people in High River are prepared to accept, with 54 against, 46 for, as per your numbers. And why would you ignore this? Thank you. I have a copy for the secretary so it can go into the minutes.
Yes, so all of your questions, none of them pertain to any of our agenda items today. So can you email that to me as well? And then I'll get answers to everything, and I can respond to.
Part of your agenda here is the strategic priorities chart. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, that bit, but you're talking about the borrowing bylaw and all the intricacies with the borrowing bylaw. That's a priority on the chart. It's not, the borrowing bylaw isn't part of today's, like, you're asking really intricate questions on that bylaw, which I have no problem in getting. I just don't have the information in front of me. So what I'm asking is, can I finish, please? What I'm asking is if you could just please email those questions to me, or I can just take this, what we've got, and I'm more than happy to get all the answers that you want to all of your questions. And we can do this at the next, we can do.
Online, everywhere, so the people of this town know what's going on. Because I will be 94 when this pool is paid off. And it's not a full pool.
Okay.
It's a pool.
Okay. Yes. I'm not going down the rabbit hole today because this has been 6 years in the making. This isn't something new. We've got answers to all your questions. I don't have them in front of me today. I'm more than happy to get all the information you're looking for. And the next council meeting, I'm more than happy to sit in this meeting and answer all your questions. No problem whatsoever. I'll answer all of your questions.
You're putting that bylaw out to the people of High River.
Yeah.
You need to put, that bylaw needs to have every information
That
I requested.
I understand that. It's not.
You put a bylaw out without that.
It's not. The bylaw isn't on today's agenda. Okay? Thank you. So we will, okay, I will look into all of your concerns with how that bylaw is written. No problem whatsoever. You put that together. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura Anderson. I'm also speaking to the strategic priorities chart. Aquatic expansion bylaw, sorry. I understand what you're saying. You want to discuss this at the next town council meeting, but I've been told we have only till October 7th to file a petition opposing this municipal bylaw. So I'm going to give my comments right now. I'd just like to go back to the referendum of 2021 where the question was put to the citizens of High River. Do you support the town borrowing up to $15 million to expand the existing pool facility? Of 4,076 that voted on the referendum, 1,865 voted yes, and 2,211 voted no. Now, the town had decided to make this referendum non-binding, which one can only guess was deliberate and calculated. And this is the context in which we are viewing this mess. I'm here to tell you that people are pinched right now financially. Inflation has hit hard. Income has not kept up with inflation. For our family, even with a decent income, it's a challenge to cover all the bills. Our home and vehicle insurance alone is $500 a month. Everyone knows the cost of groceries has increased greatly in the last few years. So after the mortgage, property taxes, utilities have been paid, and groceries have been bought, there's not a lot left over. And in our case, we are no longer able to put our kids in extracurriculars or sports. So we are now having to make sacrifices, whereas 5 years ago, this was not the case. And I believe I represent many, many residents when I say we are feeling the pinch, and we cannot afford to pay higher taxes for the proposed $14 million loan. But most importantly is the problem that the town has begun construction before the borrowing bylaw was passed. As the previous speaker pointed out, ground should not have been broken until the bylaw was passed, according to section 254, as she quoted. This would appear such an egregious act against legislative policy and procedure that every citizen deserves to know what is going on. Now, I did note the town of High River did print notices in the paper these last 2 weeks that any resident wishing to oppose the bylaw can file a petition against. However, explain to us how the onus is on us to file a petition when the town may be in the wrong in the first place, beginning construction before the municipal bylaw was passed for borrowing this money. I would happily file a petition if everything was above board, but since it may not be, the onus would be on the town to cease all construction and rescind the bylaw. That being said, I should happily knock on every door in town to expose the situation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Like I said before, I will answer all these questions at the next meeting that Mike's going to fall. Anyone else? Okay, Jody will get all that information to us, and then we're happy to address all of the concerns mentioned today. So we'll move on to delegate. Oh, sorry. That's fine. No worries. Microphone, just because it's on live streamed on YouTube and stuff. So yeah, please.
Okay. My name is Vicki McGonigal. I'm a resident of High River, and listening to the prior two speakers, my question is just, I would ask, with a borrowing of this magnitude in this economy and in this difficult political time for Canada, I would ask that you at least hold a public hearing. I know that there was a referendum, and the referendum is not being followed, and I understand that it's not binding, but I would just ask council to please hold a public hearing, let people know exactly what you're doing, exactly what they're paying for, and exactly what the long-term costs are, and the difference between debenture borrowing and mortgage borrowing. I'm familiar with municipal finance, and I know that there's a substantial difference. And but at the very least, I'm asking council, when you do consider this, to please consider having a public hearing before you take any further readings of this borrowing bylaw. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay. Two delegations today, so we'll move into the first one. From the Craze Society, we have Jill and Mandeep here to present their findings.
Hello, Council. My name is Jill Bloor, and I'm the Executive Director for the Calgary Region Airshed Zone, or CRAZ. I want to thank you all for inviting us to share the information from our year-long monitoring here, and I'm going to introduce Mandeep Dhaliwal. He is our Air Quality Program Manager, and he'll go through all the data.
Thank you, Jill. All right, so the air monitoring station was established at the Highwood Spray Park, and it was there for 1 year. Okay, we're gonna get straight into the data. The first parameter that we monitor was PM 2.5, so particulate matter smaller than 2.5 microns in diameter. So this was monitored continuously at 1 minute resolution. So the chart you see on the left side, it's 1 hour concentrations for the whole duration of the monitoring. As you can see, you see the horizontal red line. That's the Alberta Ambient Air Quality Monitoring Objective for 1 hour. We did exceed the monitoring objective more than 17 times, and that was due to the forest fires going on during that time. And the chart you see on the right-hand side, that's the 24-hour concentration. You can see that as well, that we did exceed that 24-hour guideline as well. And when you look at here, the chart on the right-hand side is the monthly average of PM 2.5. You can see in the dark blue, that's the data from High River Station. As you can see from the chart, we are well below the other monitoring stations, the other 3 monitoring stations in Calgary and the one in Airdrie. So PM 2.5 concentrations were below the concentrations observed in Calgary and Airdrie. And the one chart on the left-hand side, it shows you all the PM 2.5 annual averages in Alberta. So you see the High River Station all the way at the bottom highlighted in yellow. So again, pretty low in terms of other monitoring stations in Alberta. So this chart represents the nitrogen dioxide 1 hour data monitored at the High River Station. And as you can see, the data observed for the year was well below the ambient air quality objective for the 1 hour. In this chart on the right-hand side, the monthly average, again, you see NO2 concentrations and on High River well below the concentrations observed in Calgary stations and Airdrie Station. And the chart on the left-hand side, the bar graph shows you the annual concentration, annual NO2 concentration for the High River Station. This is the ground level ozone, and you can see that there was one exceedance of the ambient air quality objective, and that's happening during the forest fire season. So during the forest fire events, you do have quite a bit of nitrogen dioxide in the air, and in addition to the PM, VOCs, volatile organic compounds, in the presence of sunlight, they both combine and create ground level ozone. So you do have that higher. And if you look here, you kind of see that sometimes some months it was higher than the stations in Calgary. This is very normal because any rural stations, any stations in the rural background setting tend to have higher ozone concentrations during the summer times. this is a chart, this is the bar graph that represents the AQHI, which is the Air Quality Health Index for all the monitoring stations in Alberta. As you can see, the High River AQHI, the concentration or the amount of time that we were in the low health risk, it was about 85%, which is higher than the Calgary stations. So in terms of the summary, we had 17 24-hour and sorry, I'm just going to look into this one. I'm having a trouble reading that without glasses. Okay, so 17 24-hour and 91 1-hour PM 2.5 exceedance of the air criteria due to wildfire smoke, and we also had one ozone exceedance for the 1-hour air criteria, again due to the wildfire smoke. And in terms of the odors compounds, we also, as part of our monitoring, additionally we monitored some compounds just to entertain the idea of seeing what the odors are like in the community. We monitored sulfur dioxide as well as total reduced sulfur compounds. So SO2 concentrations were all well below the criteria. So the maximum 1-hour concentration for the duration that occurred in January was 4 parts per billion, and the ambient air quality objective is 172 parts per billion. So as you can see, we're well below the criteria. And the maximum 1-hour total reduced sulfur concentration we monitored, the maximum was 9 parts per billion. And currently there is no guideline for TRS, but there's one for H2S. So H2S is just one compound out of the TRS. So TRS is all the total reduced sulfur compounds, and H2S is one of them. So the guideline for H2S is 10 parts per billion. So even if we were to consider the H2S guideline as a guideline for TRS, we're still below that one. NRCB ran a concurrent ammonia monitoring program at the PAML. So on our station, they had a monitor that monitors the ammonia, and they also had one somewhere else in the community. I don't have their data with me, but from when I had the chance to review their report, the data that they monitored was well below the criteria for ammonia as well. So overall, the air quality health index in High River was again at low health risk majority of the time. Whenever it was in the moderate to high risk, it was due to the forest fires. And in general, High River is doing much better than Calgary and Airdrie when it comes to air quality. Any questions, please?
Thanks, Mandy. Any questions from council? Councillor Nychuk.
Thanks for your presentation. Hello? Fantastic. Okay. Thanks for your presentation. In regards to particulate matter in the air and you making a correlation to wildfire, how are you making that correlation?
So that's all representative of all the information that we have for during the wildfire season. So anytime there is let's say, a uncontrolled wildfire, or something that is a controlled wildfire, we do get all the information from all the national parks. Anytime that happens, we also follow the fire smoke website very closely on a daily basis. Anytime there's a forest fire, we see that smoke come in, and we also see at all across Alberta, and we also monitor within all the 4 stations in Calgary, so we can tell that it is coming from the wildfire season.
You can tell from a perceptive nature. Your equipment doesn't tell you it's wildfire smoke, right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Nothing else. Thanks very much, both of you, for providing this information and continuing to, how often will this piece of equipment be in High River? Like, is this an ongoing thing, or is this a one and done, or?
It will not be an ongoing thing, but it will be part of what we look at when we look at our network needs. Many of the other communities in the region too don't have continuous monitoring.
Right.
And it's something we're trying to work with the Alberta government on.
Okay, appreciate it.
If
Thanks.
I can add something to it.
Sure.
So Alberta government did a network assessment a while back, and they looked at the monitoring gaps in Alberta, and High River was one of the locations, one of the communities that was identified that did not have any background air quality monitoring data. So that was the reason why we actually proposed that government that we should have a monitoring station in High River for 1 year at least. So that was approved by the government. That's why we're here for 1 year. And currently we're in Okotoks. We're doing the similar exercise in Okotoks right now.
Perfect.
I just want to thank High River for being a member of CRAS as well. You've been an ongoing member, so we appreciate that.
Excellent. Thanks, Jill. Well, thanks, Jill. Thanks, Mandeep, and we'll continue on. See if we're better than Okotoks. We know that. Probably are, but a little biased. Thank you. The Youth Mental Wellness Hub. I see we have both Lorianne and Chris here to present this idea to us.
Hello, thank you to Mayor and Council for receiving us today. My name is Chris Fazzesi. During the day, I'm the superintendent at Foothill School Division, but I'm not here in that capacity today. I'm also the co-chair of an organization called The Network, which is, I guess, a group of 30 or more community organizations that provide service to students and to families across Foothills County. And my co-chair is Lorianne Schultz.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Lorianne Schultz, and my day job is a manager in rural pediatric allied health and a co-chair with Chris you might have heard of the former Foothills Children's Wellness Network. We've rebranded and we are now the network. Thank you for the opportunity today.
Thank you. So we're here today with a specific request, and you've got several documents that speak to that request. A business plan, an executive summary of that. And we want to speak to some of the work that we're doing in order to advance this integrated youth community wellness or community hub, and also to give you an idea of the why behind that and where this idea comes from.
So specifically, we are here to request establishing a funding partnership to raise $300,000 to fundraise phase 1 of the integrated youth hub as outlined in the business plan.
And we wanted to also reassure you that this is not the only town that we're approaching. We also have already received a little bit of funding from the town of Okotoks. We'll be approaching the town of Diamond Valley, the municipal district of Foothills, or the county, as well as the High River Health District Healthcare Foundation and the Sheep River Health Trust to develop a partnership here to be able to raise these funds to be able to get this work going in earnest.
So I just want to ask people to imagine this vision that we have of a welcoming and vibrant youth hub that's shaped by the voices and the unique needs of our youth. And this is a place where youth and their families can easily access basic resources, opportunities, connections, and supports and services that help our youth to flourish. It's essentially a one-stop shop where the first door is the right door.
One of the challenges that we hear from youth and also from families is that there are services in the community, a lot of services that provide support and provide guidance for families or for youth who might be in crisis or in need. The challenge that we hear is that getting to the right door becomes problematic. When in crisis, if you go seek help at a particular spot and it's not the spot that you need to be in from a mandate perspective, you may not have capacity to then go to that referral that you receive or to the second or to the third door that you're being referred to in order to get that specific service or support that you require as a family. And so we came together with a group of participants last year who were part of the network and had a visioning afternoon, if you will. And this is the mission that I guess came from that visioning afternoon as we looked at the possibilities for different service models that we could propose. And so this is the background behind that. All youth, full access, no exceptions, so that that first door that you knock on is the right door and you're able to access the services that meet your family's needs or your individual needs at the time that you require them.
So you're probably asking yourself, so, you know, we already provide services and supports. So what exactly is an integrated youth hub? So I would like to just request that we play the video, and it gives a little bit more of a broad view in terms of what exactly this is. Yeah, that's great. Play it.
Our system for supporting young people is divided into all of these separate streams of services, and young people often don't know where to go.
Running all over and meeting all these different people, it can get really overwhelming.
With an integrated model of service, what we're doing is we're creating sort of a one-stop shop model of care.
The mission is to create an opportunity space for young people and their families to be able to access all of the mental health and addiction services they need, as well as things like housing, education, income support, all of those things in one location.
We've got 5 psychologists and we also have 2 psychiatrists that come a few times a month.
C'est simple d'accès. Les gens se présentent directement pour voir l'intervenant, que ce soit psychosocial ou pour me voir moi, puis on peut les prendre en charge dans l'immédiat.
Students wanting to talk about or ask for support or ask questions about their mental health, lots of anxiety, some depression, and then sexual health. They're also welcome to come on for social, economic, other concerns that are going on in their life. We can also support them with.
We have the crisis as well as comfort line that's open 24/7. We also have the residential school survivor team, the case management team, the adult team, and the youth team.
So you're just collaborating with so many other people, like you're connecting them through so many different supports.
For sure, having everything in one space, working with the same people, it's definitely a huge help.
It's just perfect to have this one place where you can get it all. I think that's like the best thing ever.
So you can see from that video that these organizations or this model exists elsewhere in Canada. We saw different examples from across Canada, and this is also what we heard from youth. Over the last several years, we've held 3 youth mental wellness summits in Okotoks, but including participants from across Foothills County. And this is the voice of youth, or this is what the voice of youth is telling us, is that they'd like to see this model here in the county so that they can access services along with their families in a timely fashion and without those barriers that you also saw mentioned within that video.
So a little bit more about the why. You know, that was the what. And so let's maybe understand a little bit more about why this is important. The next video, please.
I think it's really empowering that as a youth, I can start making a difference in mental health.
We design our centers with youth, for youth. And so when you have that happening and youth are engaged and involved in the design of a center, then you have a space that's friendly, that's welcoming, that is safer for young people.
We've been really intentional about making sure that everything that we do is with our young people, not just for them.
Empowering, I would say, because it lets you know that just because you're young, it doesn't mean that you don't have a voice.
Puis les outils étaient intéressants, ils étaient adaptés à moi, ils étaient adaptés à où j'étais et quel est mon type de personnalité aussi.
It's a program really designed for youth, using youth's voice. I get to have a say like in creating Help with Foundry Surrey, what programs you should do, what even like to the colors of what chairs, those little things, but Foundry is really focused on amplifying the youth's voice.
We really want to focus on working with our young people to help guide and drive this, which requires a lot of meeting them where they're at.
There's a large population here that is Indigenous, so a lot of what I'm doing is working with the communities, and so building connections with IYS is really, really helpful, and providing a safe space where Indigenous youth can get together, they can learn from each other, and just make really good connections.
Like they're just feel like they're our partners and not just invited on an ad hoc basis to give their insights. They're really integrated in everything we do, in the way that we think about how we deliver services.
I'm on the Youth Leadership Advisory Council, and we help advise and give direction to different programs that choices have. Housing, mental health, food security is a big one that we're working on right now.
Le comité, ça fait déjà plusieurs années que ça roule entre les jeunes, sont encore présents, sont toujours mobilisés quand on a des projets. Puis on a aussi plusieurs jeunes qui ont été impliqués, qui sont devenus des intervenants aussi par la suite.
Each advisory is made up of different youth from different communities, so we really focus on what each community needs on our hub.
Et les jeunes, c'est les adultes de demain. Si on travaille concrètement, eux aussi à leur tour, ils vont être prêts à s'impliquer par la suite.
I think success is listening to the young people and implementing their suggestions and really hearing their voice.
That's a big thing. Youth want to be heard. We want to be heard.
Just providing my feedback and providing my voice in a youth perspective, I can really shape what the future of youth mental health will look like. So to me, it's very empowering and also very inspiring.
Thank you. So from these two videos, you can see that what we're proposing to build in the region of the foothills doesn't currently exist. And these concepts align with the global transformation of youth-based services. Clinicians and researchers have been advocating for some time for better integration of child, youth, and family-facing systems. And this model brings together separate cross-sector organizations into a community-based setting to provide comprehensive services for youth and families. So as mentioned, it's a one-stop shop that delivers a variety of supports and services that address the unique needs of youth. And it's a program that's designed with youth for youth. So we've spent the last 3 years, as Chris mentioned, delivering a youth summit, bringing youth to the summit, listening to youth, and we've also had a youth survey. We know that we have to support them in different ways. We've heard that they have challenges accessing traditional services, as Chris mentioned, issues around transportation, difficulties finding time to participate in programs due to family responsibilities, communication barriers, school jobs, all of those things impact the ability for youth to be able to access services. They also have difficulty navigating, even services within their community. We hear that accessibility of programs and services are only available at certain times of the day, like 9 to 5, but many youth can't actually access those services at 9 to 5 because they're going to school. Youth want to be able to access warm and welcoming environments. I don't know how many times I heard that from our youth. A lot of the traditional supports and services that we put in front of youth they're not youth friendly. They don't feel welcome, they don't feel heard, and it's difficult for them to ask for support. Youth want to be given choices, they want to be able to access options of services, and adults and parents are often a barrier to them accessing their services. We've heard from many youth saying that their parents don't accept that they have other issues like mental health issues, and so that stops them from actually consenting to access traditional services. We hear from many youth that they don't fit the traditional eligibility criteria. They need a referral and parent consent. So all of these things are barriers for youth to be able to access the services that they often need.
And we just see here some of those key themes that Lorianne was speaking about in terms of the voice of youth that we've gathered over the last three years and through that survey that took place this year. Accessibility, housing, transportation, mental health, employment, these are all on our current youth's mind. And I don't think those concerns or wonders will be going away anytime soon. Stigma and transportation, we've built into this model, if we can get this going over the next 3 years, a mobile unit as well as some transportation to get students to and from the different parts of the county to access a brick and mortar model. We want to make sure that youth continue to have a voice in this decision-making process and have a plan to have a youth advisory committee that guides this work. And then that safety issue, a safe and comfortable space that's inclusive of all members of our Foothills community.
I mentioned that we did a survey, and the survey ran from March to June 2024. We had 83 respondents. It wasn't as much as we had hoped, but this information was information that was gleaned from the survey, that 13% reported that clinics were currently too far, 44% of youth surveyed that they were not satisfied with wait times for services. 78% of the youth that we surveyed felt there was a need for a youth-friendly centralized location and hub, and 46% of youth surveyed reported they would go to that hub if it existed.
In addition, 44% of local youth surveyed reported experiencing emotional difficulties in managing a sensitive matter in their life, and expressed that they could require or could use more help with that. 24% did not know where to go for help. That's a quarter of our youth in our community do not know where to go for help when there are existing services that could help them. 21% again reported long wait times, and then 20% reported needing immediate support but could not get an appointment, which speaks to the timeliness that we're referring to.
In your package, you would have received the feasibility study that was completed last year. That feasibility study, the network hired a consultant and worked with, there were a series of questions that was asked of the members of the network, and members of the network include our agencies and organizations across the area of the Foothills. There was unanimous support for an integrated service hub. There was need to address service gaps in the region, and then the top ranked needs as identified by youth serving agencies was youth drop-in services, same-day walk-in counseling, psychoeducational education support, crisis response, housing support, food security, and family counseling.
Given the, I guess, the work that we've been doing over the last several years and the clear mandate that the feasibility study as well as the visioning group came together and the network gave us, we believe we should move forward with this as a service that could become available to the youth and the families in Foothills County. And the idea here is not to replace the organizations that currently exist, but to provide a space where those organizations can come together and provide that one-stop shop model for youth and families across the Foothills.
And I think the other thing to really highlight is that this work has been completed by the network, which has a long and strong history of collaboration, and we are well positioned to successfully build this integrated hub. And positioning an integrated hub as a place where all youth feel they can turn to for resources and support can help strengthen our community's capacity to support our young people. And one of the things that we have been saying at all of our meetings is that we know this is needed. So if we don't do this now, then when are we going to do this? Any questions?
Thanks, Lorianne. Thanks, Chris. So Kelly and I attended one of the summits here a number of months ago, which is kind of where we got involved and I got brought up to speed on what's happening. But one of the biggest things that we came out of that with is in the summit we had youth representatives from all of our communities around here that clearly shared their stories as to their struggles and what's available and what they can access and what they can't access. And you get a real big eye-opener as to the environment some of our kids grow up in at home and whether they've got parental support or not at home and what level that's at. So it's very clear to me that we absolutely need something like this in our communities to support, because in Calgary they've got, what's the organization in Calgary that?
The Alex.
The Alex, right. And they've got a mobile unit that goes around and kids know what it looks like and they know they can access it and it's safe. And around here we don't have anything, and because of the foothills region being so big, it's very difficult. And so a lot of discussion as to how do we get this thing started, and because just coming up with budget numbers and building a new bricks and mortar building, it just isn't going to happen. We're not going to get the support needed to do something like that. The other piece is where do we put it? If you put it in High River, well, how do the Diamond Valley kids access it? How do Okotoks kids access it? Longview, et cetera, Eden Valley. So that's where we got talking about and came with the mobile unit to get things started, which I love the idea because it piggybacks on what the Alex does. And I know you've got some budget numbers in there, but do you have a specific ask for High River with the actual number?
Is this on? Hello?
Yeah, it's going. You got to really stay close to it there, Lorianne.
Okay. Well, we are asking for $300,000 to fund 1 year to have somebody. Chris and I do this off the side.
No, that's the piece I want to clarify.
Yes.
Is that 300,000 from all of the different communities?
It's a combination. So we are looking to have $300,000. So whether or not Okotoks gives us $100,000, or whether High River, we need to raise $300 to be able to action the first year of the deliverables as per the business plan.
Okay. How close are you to that with the money that Okotoks and the foundation's given you?
Town of Okotoks has given us $35,000 to spend by the end of this calendar year, and have said that they'll work with us and the other towns to pull together the money needed to be able to support ongoing for the next year.
So we'll figure that out together. Okay. That was all I had. Any other questions? Hang on, this thing's jumping around. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Thank you very much, both of you. It was a very illuminating day in terms of looking at the needs in our communities and seeing that they are universal. Doesn't matter whether you're in Diamond Valley, High River, or Nanton. So I guess my question is, if there's going to be a formula going forward, is it going to need the municipalities to come together to divine what that's going to be? If there's a mobile unit that's going to spend equal amounts of time in each community? I mean, how do you see everybody being able to come together to do this? I think there's no question there's a need. It's just, I guess, the how. And is there a formula that you've kind of already got in the backs of your minds?
We don't have a formula, but this would be one of the first action items to be able to pull together, work with the different towns to understand how we're going to actually do this. We need to create that service model. We need to figure out what's possible, and we need to have some dedicated time to do that. So would be working with everybody to hear where are their opportunities and how can we action that.
Do you see a mobile unit as being your best first starting place, or what do you see that being?
I think it has to be part of the starting place, but I also think that a brick and mortar location to begin concurrently makes some sense. Where that space is dependent on different organizations across the county and whether people are willing to partner with us to provide that space, whether at a very low cost or at no cost, aside from the costs of custodial and whatnot that would be incurred. I think it would have to be both. But if we don't provide a mobile service to begin with, I'm not sure we're setting ourselves up for longer or sustainable success.
And the budget I went to the Alex and learned a little bit about their mobile unit. So a cost for the Sprinter van or a larger bus would be, the van would be $80,000, and I think an annual budget for one of these vans is $100,000, and that includes salaries of the people who are actually in the unit.
Councillor Nychuk?
I did, and it was on, then it was off. All right. Thank you, and there's no question there's needs for things like this in the region, in our community, and other communities. Your 3-phase plan is pretty extensive. It requires a lot of cash. The other examples I saw in the video were the Eskasoni from out east. I'm not quite sure, I couldn't find just how much funding they have that's governmental, but there is some indication that Nova Scotia provided them some funding this year. The Saskatchewan Integrated Youth Services is funded by the province to the tune of 3.4 million, I believe. I couldn't find much on Foundry out of Surrey, but it seems there's provincial involvement. I couldn't find anything tied federally. From a municipal perspective, there is lots that's getting offloaded. Maybe transfer is a nicer word, but the expectation for municipalities to look after, and this doesn't diminish the need, that's not what I'm saying, but I guess the question more is any of these organizations that are similar to what, that have been in existence, like Eskasoni has apparently been around since 1991. Fantastic. I was amazed at that number because it seems like this kind of thing has come to the forefront in our society more so now than, anyway, I thought that was fantastic. So national or provincial funding, because to me this falls under healthcare of us as citizens of the country, of the province, of the community as well. And this isn't to say I'm not supportive of providing something from a municipal perspective, but the problem seems significantly larger to me. And beyond the problem of youth health, this is more the root of the problem to me, just me, is the home environment. And, we can help youth out of the environment they're in, but how do we fix that going forward when we've got a problem from where they're coming from? So this is a good solution, but and I'm not saying take on the other challenge of fixing the problem prior to that, but there's a lot to talk about here, and I'm glad you're here and we are talking about it. So thank you. So back to the provincial and potential federal funding aspect.
Yes, so I don't know whether you've heard of Kickstand, and so they are the organization that has been given the mandate by the provincial government to spread and scale. So there are 9 hubs across the province right now. The closest one to us would be Strathmore. They're in a bit of a transition right now to move from the hub that was supported through PolicyWise back in 2019 to this Kickstand model. We have been engaging with Kickstand and for the last two years, and they are waiting for an announcement from the provincial government to spread and scale 2 additional integrated hubs in the province. They have communicated to us that we are well positioned within our community or communities to be a recipient because of the work that we've been doing to date with the network. So with Kickstand comes operational dollars. So the money that we're asking for is, to get us started, and it's, an estimate of what a youth hub will cost from an operational perspective. But if we were a Kickstand brand, they would work with the lead organization. A lead organization could be a current organization within one of the Foothill School Division. It could be FCSS. It could be Alberta Health Services, in whatever iteration of Alberta Health Services is going to exist. But with that comes operational dollars, so money to support capital campaigns, but also I think there was $500,000 from an operational perspective. So there is a really great chance that we will be one of the sites. Yeah.
If I can add to that, we're waiting to hear from Kickstand right now around proposals, or a submission of proposal that they expect to have out around January, at which point we would intend to submit a proposal and hopefully be one of those 2 communities that would receive that funding.
The money that we're asking for in terms of a funding partnership is really to get this work started. You know, we do this work off the side of our desks, and it really needs to have dedicated people. So when Mayor Snodgrass was at the summit, he said, what can we do? I said, we just need to have dedicated time to be able to pull this together.
So Chris, can we get this as part of our budget discussions this year? So that'll get put on the agenda as to what we can, the physical location, Chris, is, you're looking for something existing, of course. We can't afford to build right now, but you're looking for something existing. So that's another thing that we'll go through and look at different avenues, that space we might have available in High River that might be able to be utilized some way as well. So no further questions from council, so we'll bring this to budget and have further conversations with you folks. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Lorianne. Okay, moving into business, water treatment plant, UVT upgrade, and the PLC 5 replacements. Rob?
Good afternoon. So we're here today to present and request an RFD for the PLC 5 replacement, UVT temperature and pH upgrade at the water treatment plant.
Rob, make sure you talk right into that mic. We're having one heck of a time trying to hear anything. I think it's better out there, but it's...
So we are here to request a decision from council for our water treatment plant UVT, pH, and temperature and PLC 5 replacement upgrades. It has been resolved by Public Works that we move forward with Ridgeline and SEMA Plus at a cost of $291,750.16. Decisions for that were relationships with SEMA and Ridgeline, and the cost was under budget. MPE was over budget by about $10,000.
Is that all you need? Is it that easy?
It's that easy.
Any questions from council? I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Smith, the council direct administration to award the contract to Ridgeline SEMA Plus in the amount of $291,750.16, excluding GST and contingency, and that council authorize the mayor and CAO to execute the contract with Ridgeline and SEMA.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thanks very much, Rob. Cool.
Thank you.
Joint administration building rooftop unit replacement. Colton?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm here to ask for the award of the contract for the 2 rooftop units for the joint admin building to Chisholm Industries. They provided a very detailed report on the work that they would be doing. They did come in under budget, right around $590,000, with the next leading offer was around $650,000. So I do believe that this is the best price for the rooftops, and the experience that this company has. We're fully confident that they will be able to get the job done in a timely manner and quality work as well.
Thanks, Colton. So the 587, that's total cost, correct?
That's total cost, yes.
Which Foothills County will be paying 50% of, correct?
That is correct.
So our total hit is $594 or $294,000, right?
That's right.
Okay. So we pay for this and then we invoice the county
For 50%.
for 50% of it. Okay. It's a weird thing, seeing as they own the building, that we do this part. Anyways.
We do maintain like all aspects
Yeah.
of the building.
Councillor Nychuk.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. My questioning was along the same lines, but perhaps that's something to talk about just at a later council meeting, maybe committee of the whole, on how this building is structured and how things like this are dealt with. Because I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm looking at our CAO, that we use a percentage less than the county might as far as square footage in this building. So things like that come to mind about sharing costs and things, and that's not a discussion or resolution to have here today, but just maybe something we want to talk about at another time.
We will add that to the next council meeting.
Perfect.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Similar along those lines, but has the county agreed to pay their half yet, or is this coming to us first?
Yes, they have agreed to it, and they've gone over our full evaluation process, and they're happy with the contractor that we've picked.
So they've passed a resolution, and they're going to get, okay, thank you.
I wouldn't go as far as a resolution. I don't think they've passed a resolution yet, but Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. And just so for the edification of all of us, the original amount that we had budgeted for this year was 1.1. So coming in at 588 is a good number, right? Okay.
Very
thanks.
good number.
Very good number.
I'll ask for award from Councillor Barton that council award the contract to Chisholm Industries Limited to provide and install the new rooftop units at Town Hall for the amount of $587,888, excluding GST and contingency, and that council authorize the mayor and CAO to execute the contract with Chisholm Industries.
You have my motion, Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Bucket truck replacement. Colton?
Yeah, so I am also here to ask for you guys to award the purchase of a bucket truck awarded to Altech Industries at $242,538, and this would replace the town's current bucket truck. A little bit more background on that is the previous cost that we had awarded was 135, and so we're asking for an extra 108. Overall, the total fleet budget will still be 92,932 under budget.
Okay. These things are expensive. So is any vehicle. Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. So can you just explain to us why it's so much more expensive than what was originally anticipated? Because that's a fairly significant, it's almost double.
Yeah, I can. When we first proposed this, we weren't sure whether we were going to keep the current bucket truck and then get more of like a Zoom Boom man basket. And after discussing with all departments, roads, building maintenance, utilities, going the Zoom Boom route would not be beneficial at all for the town. You come into like travel around town to different sites, it's larger basket, it can't get into near the same areas. And with assessing our current bucket truck, it is no longer going to be financially advantageous to keep due to the repairs that it's required. So we did decide that we would have to go ahead with a single man basket truck instead of that Zoom Boom dual basket purpose kind of thing.
So the original intention was to retrofit the existing truck?
It would be to keep the existing truck and then get a Zoom Boom style man lift.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And now we're just going to go with something totally different.
Now we will just be replacing like for like.
Okay.
So the town currently has a single man basket and we'll just be replacing it the exact same way.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. On the fleet items that have actual costs on them, so it shows that we are sort of under budget even with the increased costs in this bucket truck, but are there still fleet items that have not been looked at?
No, this is the last truck, and given the decision on whether we would replace it like for like or go ahead with the Zoom Boom, that's why we saved it for last, to make sure that everything else was purchased already, everything has been awarded, and those costs should not change at all.
Perfect, thank you.
So I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Jones that Council direct administration to award the purchase contract to Altech Industries in the amount of $242,538, not including GST, and that Council authorize the Mayor and CAO to execute the contract with Altech Industries.
I'll give you that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Colton. Boys and Girls Club remediation. Nicole?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Today I'm coming to request an approved budget of $110,000 for the Boys and Girls Club mold remediation. This was discovered when we were looking to put the elevator back into service to follow accessibility regulations. And when the elevator was opened, after being decommissioned since 2009, the mold was discovered. And then that's when we sealed everything up.
So the 110,000, that's of course to clean up the elevator, and then to remove all of the drywall in the whole basement, is that right? To inspect the whole thing, or?
We did receive the air quality report from Anina, and there is spores within certain parameters of the elevator, like by the stairs that go downstairs. So there are a couple of other locations within the basement that could potentially have mold. And so the 90,000 is to remediate the elevator, and then depending, hopefully there is no further mold, but as they start to peel away, to see if there's any more mold. So there's a good chance that, but there's no restoration, drywall rebuilding included in this.
Okay. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass, and thank you, Nicole, for following through on all these details. A couple of questions. Firstly, confirming that the amount you're asking is to address the mold, but we don't know the source, and there are other indicators saying it's more, I believe, is it not premature to address the mold before we know what's really happening? In looking at the building itself, the age of the building, the value. So is remediating, taking care of the mold, is it premature without looking at what the real problem is?
That's true, but unfortunately the vendors that would come in to look at this are refusing to come in until remediation is complete. So once we're able to remediate, then those services can come in and do a full evaluation to see what exactly the source of the moisture is in the elevator.
I see. And what is the timeline of this being completed? And is there any hope that we'll be using the facility again?
I would say it's probably close to the end of October. Remediation should be complete, and then we should be able to determine what the source of the moisture is. Whether or not we can put the elevator back into service, that remains to be seen until we can do further investigation. And the company that would do that investigation is also not willing to enter the building until remediation is complete.
Thank you.
Councillor Nychuk.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. So for my clarity, the $90,000 is just to remediate mold out of the elevator or elevator shaft. That has nothing to do with its compliance for accessibility. This is $90,000 to clean up mold.
We don't anticipate that it will cost $90,000. We have some quotes from vendors, and they range from $15,000 to $80,000. So it'll be determined. It'll be based upon the evaluation of those vendors once we understand deeper how far they have to go in once they get started.
Sorry, so that was a range of 15 to 80?
Yes.
And so you're hedging your bets and asking for 90. Okay. And then beyond that, to the rest of council, to Councillor Walsh's point, this might be a bit of a money pit. I don't like the idea of fixing something without knowing what the problem is. There's going to be more dollars. I mean, if we're going to end up spending $500,000 on a building that's only worth $100,000, I'm not so good with that. So I don't know if there's a chicken and egg thing here that we're trying to make a decision on, or if there's a way to get more information prior to making this decision. But for me to make a decision, I would like to know what the other consequences are and not just, potentially spend $90,000 to know we have another, who knows how much money that has to come after it. So it's a little vague to me.
I can probably answer that, Councillor Nychuk, through Mayor Snodgrass. And that's kind of the problem that we're in too, because we don't know what the source is. We don't know how bad the moisture coming in is. We don't know how far it's extended within the building, elsewhere within the building, without taking a look at it and doing the remediation. Where we're at difficulty is that these contractors that would be taking a look at that have refused the work to come in because it's not safe. And so that's kind of where the chicken and egg scenario is absolutely correct. We have to spend some money to find out what the actual damage is going to be and the cost associated with that, and make that decision once we know those facts from that perspective. We did debate internally about whether just closing off the basement in its entirety and relocating mechanical systems and looking at other options and basically filling it up with concrete, so to speak, and then you don't have to worry about the accessibility requirements. But at the end of the day, we've got to go through this process, and if council's unsure, now's the time to tell us, and we stop the process from that perspective and see if there's other alternatives from that perspective to move forward with.
I am not a contractor in hazardous materials, so but understanding something about asbestos removal and what they do in that type of situation, I'm kind of trying to understand how there's not a company out there that deals with this type of scenario, that has the proper PPE to go in and do some investigation. Not saying you guys haven't exhausted your resources. Maybe you have. Maybe there is nobody, and then there's a light bulb idea. Maybe there's a company I can start that does this kind of, anyway. So.
Yeah, and for us, it's finding the source of where the moisture is actually coming from. Is it coming from the foundation wall, and is there a crack in the foundation? Until we demolish the site and the site of where the mold is located, we don't know that. Is it hydrostatic pressure coming up through the slab? And so there's a multitude of different things that could be causing the moisture coming in, and it may be a simple fix is simply putting in another sump pump that pumps 24 hours a day that keeps the space dry. But until we know that for sure, we're dealing with some unknowns there and some, some work that other contractors have refused to go in there and do work for us.
You good? Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. And I was thinking cart and horse versus chicken and egg, but same concept. So the 90K that you're looking for is just that elevator assessment only. I just want to be absolutely crystal. That's not the rest of the building at this point. That's just where the mold currently is or has been discovered.
I can provide clarity. I think it's up to 90K, depending which bidder we go with, the one we feel most comfortable with, that can complete the work effectively, and then chase back where the problem actually is. We're seeing the visible mold within the elevator shaft. Does it extend further? And so that's the whole point of the demolition piece, is chasing it back. It might be very isolated and might be best case scenario, but it also might be worst case. And that's one thing when you have foundation leaks and mold issues, that you don't know the extent of that problem.
What's the value of the building currently?
That is a good question. I do not have that information.
Okay, and
It was donated to the municipality.
Yeah. Okay. But if it's worth $100,000 and we're going to try and spend $100,000 just to identify the mold, then that's not a good way forward. But I also am curious, where are the Boys and Girls Club now?
We've have them in a temporary location working out of the Parent Link Center at CCMC, and amending their programs to meet our programming requirements as well. So we've made them fit, and I'm not sure if they've had to cancel any of their programs, and Mrs. Coots here as well from FCSS that's been helping us through this process, but we've got them temporarily located at that location.
Okay, and the last question for me is, what's the timeline once it's awarded? How soon will we know?
I believe Ms. Dick had kind of identified that we'd be looking at the end of October to have the remediation done.
Okay, thank you.
Just one point of clarification, Nicole, and then I've got two others that want to speak. We keep talking about $90,000, but in the request, it's that council approve a budget of 110. So which one is it?
It's 110, so we do have 20,000 in there for contingency.
Okay. Do we need a contingency number when we've got bids from 15 to 80? We're already under the 90. Do you need?
It's always good. Like I'm going to protect this
the
one.
School of Riley.
Mayor Snodgrass, mold is a very hard thing to pinpoint in a structure, and we don't know the scope until we actually demolish it.
Until you start opening it up, I understand. Yeah.
Because even after
Anybody in High River shouldn't be able to understand that. Sorry, go ahead, Nicole.
I was just going to say, even after the mold remediation, there'll be air scrubbing because the spores would have.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Nicole, I'm just wondering, well, first of all, Councillor Smith, thank you for asking again with regards to the value of the building. I think that's one of our first questions before we look at how much realistically we should be investing. So beyond that, is it an option to seal this elevator shaft, have someone in and make a proper assessment? It was sealed before.
It was sealed before, and nobody had opened it. It was at the time that they did open it in order to do the assessment where the mold was discovered. If we reseal it without finding where the problem is coming from, there's a chance that it could actually be spreading, and we're unable to see it.
So resealing the danger to bring someone in to do an assessment. I was more thinking that I understand that the employees are not interested in working in such a dangerous situation. Can we reduce the danger involved with the elevator shaft to have a company in to assess the facility overall without spending money on taking mold away that we know is more than there?
The risk that we have right now is that we now know that there's mold in the building.
Mhm.
And so we actually have to deal with it.
Of course, and
And so I think if I can understand the premise of your question too, is remediating the elevator shaft, finding the source of the problem. Is there a way that we can actually close off the entire basement so that it's not impactful on the users?
No, that's not my question at all. I believe that there's no question whatsoever that we have a very, very serious situation in this building. My question is more to, before we spend $90,000 trying to eliminate some mold, can we seal that enough to prevent a safe working condition to bring the people in to do the proper exploration and spend $90,000 or whatever it is once? Or maybe it's much more.
Okay.
Do you understand my question?
I understand the question now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, either make it safe, look at it getting it fixed, or close the door.
It goes back to my previous statement. Now that we know that we have mold in the building,
Mhm.
we have to remediate.
Yes, but do we have to spend $90,000 before we can actually remediate and investigate? That's what I think we should avoid. To me, that's a waste of money. If we have to do it to get the professionals in to repair, so be it. But if we don't have to start repairing, if we can create a safe situation and have it properly investigated and either fixed or pushed over.
I can go. I think there, to a certain degree, we're relying on the remediation for the investigation. So you have remediation of the mold, and then you have the investigation of the cause. So part of the remediation will be things like removing drywall and whatnot. So to find a leak in a foundation, you need to get in behind all that, and until we get the mold out, and because it's tied up with the drywall, you can't do that. So we're back to chicken and egg. So to find out the issue with the mold, you have to do the source of the mold. You still have to do your remediation, or at least tearing off all the drywall, in which case now you're doing the full remediation. If you were to seal off the elevator, you would be hoping that the problem's outside of the elevator, because if you had to go in, and if the problem is in there, because we don't know exactly where it is, we wouldn't find it. So again, we'd be spending money investigating and not sure where it is, and would also have to do air testing to make sure they could actually enter, because the final part before you put people into the space is another round of air testing. So even if you sealed it and said we want to put people in the basement, you're still in for a round of air testing. Does that make sense?
Yes, and just to be clear, at no point am I suggesting anybody go inside the building until it is 100% safe.
No, I
So
agree.
no
That
matter.
was super clear.
Okay, good. Just,
Yeah, no, that was clear.
I'm
I
not
got it.
suggesting
I got it.
anybody go in the basement. Just
No.
okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
The question was, can we seal it up and make it safe and send people in?
Just to make it safe to investigate. That was. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but the only way to make this facility safe to investigate is to remediate the mold.
Correct.
It's just the only way.
And you kind of have to do the remediation to get in behind
Correct.
the drywall too. So it's, yeah.
Correct. And when we're talking about the value of the building, it's not the current value as to what you could sell the thing for today, because right now it's zero. With this current problem going on, it's worth nothing. But you also have to look at the real value as to what's the replacement value. If we get rid of that, okay, are we building another one? Because now you're off the charts with money. So the mold is there. We know the mold is there. We've all seen the pictures of the mold. It's extensive. The first step for these guys to be able to do anything further is to remediate that mold. has to. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. The start of this was to look at the elevator for accessibility purposes because it doesn't meet standards.
It was inoperable.
Well, the elevator, but the accessibility, like I know the building very well and it's stairs. So to have something in there such as the BGC, does there need to be more accessible way for them to get in and out of the building, like, or around the building, upstairs or downstairs? That was the first reason we were looking at that. So even if we do all this, now we still gotta look at, again, not what the value of this building is, but the value to us in High River, right? So if we can't put BGC back in there because of we can't afford to put in an elevator, is it still usable to them without that accessibility portion? Does that make sense? Because if it's not meeting code, that's another cost that we need to start thinking about in this whole remediation process, is where we started from.
Yeah, and I can kind of speak to that, because at the end of the day, we used to have Literacy for Life in the basement as a tenant. BGC had asked them to vacate those premises so they could expand their programs. Because BGC is expanding their programs, universal accessibility is one of their key requirements. And so how they program that building is not within our control, and what spaces that they use for their programs. So, we want to investigate as part of their expansion whether or not that elevator could be put back into service or not, and increase their accessibility to that structure. Like the report said, the elevator was closed down in 2009. We don't know the reason. There's no real good information on file that says the reason why it was closed down. And so the whole goal was to open that up to see if it could be reinstated or not, and we found this problem. Thankfully, for the safety of those people that used the building, that we did find it before it got much worse.
Any further questions, Council? So I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Jones that Council approve a budget of up to $110,000 for the Boys and Girls Club mold remediation to be funded by reserves, and that restoration be held pending a complete investigation to determine the cause of the mold.
I'll give you that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
All in favor? Opposed? 2 opposed. Motion passes. Cemetery concrete ribbon replacement, Riley.
Thank you. So before you is a budget request to replace the remaining ribbons. So a number of years ago, we found out that the ribbons in the cemetery, which is the strip of concrete that the headstones sit on, didn't meet spec. Council approved the first chunk of work, which was done, but we're getting requests for sales in the portion that has yet to be replaced. So before you is the price to replace the balance of the ribbons. Be happy to take questions.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. I'm assuming too much, but we recover this cost, do we not, as we sell these plots? Is that part of the cost over time?
There is a recovery component to the cost.
I see our finance guy back there is nodding his head.
Nodding. So if David's nodding, we're good.
David's nodding, just so you know. And there's no contingency, so.
And this we tried to get in with the whole sidewalk replacement program to get one outfit to do it all, right? But nobody bid on that, so. And
Correct.
this is important that we get this, because we're Everybody knows what I do for a living, and the problem with this is when these ribbons were initially installed, a plot is 4 feet wide, but some of the cuts in the concrete that define where the plots are, some of them are down to like 3.4 inches. So the problem when we do that is when we sell monuments, we're thinking that we've got 4 feet to work with, and now you start having monuments crawling into other people's plots, and it just doesn't, it's been a real cluster to say the least. But so we got to deal with this beforehand, because now we're at the point where we can't even sell those plots, and there's of course people that want certain areas beside other people or close to other people. So it's important that we just get this dealt with and get these things torn out and replaced. So I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Nychuk that you are here. Council amend the 2024 budgets. I saw somebody walking behind me. I didn't know who it was. Amend the 2024 budget by adding $55,000 from the cemetery operating reserve to fund the cemetery ribbon replacement program.
I feel really important that I've come to a level of invisibility with this council. So I will be happy to give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Now just to find somebody that'll do it. Thanks, Riley. Thanks, Nicole. 112th Street and area structure plan and FSR.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The 20th Street connector land was annexed into the town on January 1st, 2012, and the 112th Street land was annexed into the town on January 1st, 2021. Neither of these lands currently have area structure plans or functional servicing reports, and none of these lands are connected to town services. The 20th Street land is zoned Urban Reserve District, and the lands that are within the 112th Street area are still zoned under the 2021 version of the Foothills County Land Use Bylaw. While the annexation agreement did allow the town the option of rezoning the lands in 112th Street to Urban Reserve District, as is common after an annexation, the town did not take this step due to landowner concerns. At the time of the annexation, again, January 1st, 2021, it was anticipated that the landowners would work together to complete the required ASP and FSR together. However, not seeing progress on the matter, the town did host an open house with the landowners to discuss this matter about a year ago, back last fall. It was ultimately determined that it would be in the overall public interest to have the town take lead on the ASP and FSR project to ensure that it was in place in a timely manner and to avoid further ad hoc development, as well as to ensure that it meets all of the town and Calgary Metropolitan Region Board requirements. After it was determined that the town is going to be taking lead on this project and the landowners would be responsible for the full cost, the town passed a motion to, first of all, direct the town's development authority to not accept any new development permit applications for the land within 112th Street, except for temporary uses or very minor developments like home occupations. That wouldn't result in any new buildings until the FSR and ASP are complete and until the subsequent land use bylaw amendments are in effect. The town also passed a motion directing the town's subdivision authority not to accept any further subdivision applications, again, in this area until the ASP and FSR are adopted by council, and again, until the land use bylaw amendments are in place. Administration posted a request for proposals or RFP for the ASP and FSR project with a deadline of August 30th, 2024. The town reviewed all of the applications, all the submissions that we received, and we determined that Tetra Tech should be the successful candidate. The town did receive 5 different proposals. Tetra Tech did give us the amount of $277,763, excluding GST. We have created in front of you the draft agreement, and we are planning on dividing it up among the landowners, including the town of High River, as the town is a landowner in that area, by hectare, to make sure that it's fair. So people who own more hectares of land are paying a proportionally higher share than people who own less hectares of land. And we would like to use the total of $300,000 just to add a contingency to this project. Finally, administration, the recommendation is that administration recommends the council officially award the project to Tetra Tech to incorporate the project fee into the cost sharing agreement and to proceed with the project kickoff meeting. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Sarah. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. So all the landowners have agreed to this? Or are they aware of the value and what this impact is going to be, like what it's going to cost them as individual landowners?
The landowners have not been approached for this particular part yet. We wanted to bring it to council first. The landowners, of course, know that we put out this request for proposals, but they don't know what was chosen. We were going to present this to them after we took this to council.
What happens if they say no, or any one of them, or 2 or 3 of them say no? What's our plan B?
So just to be clear, we're not asking the landowners to pay for this, if you remember right. Correct?
I thought we
We
were.
are through
we were going to...
through the cost recovery mechanism.
Yeah.
Council had resolved that there be a cost recovery mechanism and agreement laid out to recover the costs associated with the ASP.
But that we would do it.
We would do it.
We would manage it, we would do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's my understanding as well, and that we're going to do it, we're going to pay for it, but that cost is going to be divided out amongst the existing landowners that are going to benefit from this ASP.
And if I can add too, we did survey and did send out the draft agreement and what we expected the cost to be from our preliminary estimates of $300,000 to the 13 homeowners out there. 10 of the 13 agreed that they're prepared to cost share. Now, they can always back out when we now kind of go through the award process. That's always a risk. But there's other mechanisms that we can find to recover those costs in the future as well that we may have to be a bit creative.
Yeah, I guess my question is I'm okay with approving this, but if the landowners pull out, why would we go ahead, really?
And I think that would be a question we'd have to bring back to council to say, the motion that we have right now is that council authorized us to go forward with an ASP in this area and then add it into the cost sharing agreement, which then we surveyed them. So that we're going on that premise based upon those 10 of 13 that committed in writing to move forward with an ASP in that area.
Okay. I just want to be confident that they're all going to step up and pay their share. Now you're saying 10 of 13. What about the other 3? How are we going to manage that?
We will send them an agreement, and we'll have to either reapportion it based with them excluded because they're and not still include them in the ASP area, but not necessarily give them a land use designation from that perspective because based upon their input, they just want to live there. They don't want to do anything else.
Okay, so we could put it through the 10.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Should we not know that before we award a contract?
Well, we know that 10 have committed to writing into the agreement for $300,000. And they agreed to the the terms of the draft agreement.
Okay. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Just curious, so that there's a big gap between all of these quotes that we've been given. And I appreciate that Tetra Tech might have had the most advantageous proposal, but what sets them apart from the, say, the McElhaney? If I said that wrong, sorry, but
No,
why would we go with that when, if we're downloading, if we're asking the community out there to contribute, I want to be able to justify this decision when it's a significantly higher amount.
The evaluation process takes a look at past experience. Price is not just the bottom line aspect of things. It takes a look at past experience and what our experience has been with those individual companies and whether or not we've had experience with them at all. It also takes a look at what their repertoire of previous ASPs or previous planning programs and engineering programs may have been as well. So it's not just looking at bottom line price. What gave Tetra Tech the leg up was that we've had good experience with their planning team. They're relatively new. They're an MSA holder with the municipality for our engineering side of things. They have done a little bit of engineering for us, and we're confident with their abilities from an engineering side of things as well. This opens it up for them to get a little bit more experience and bring forward their planning team as well into that fray that will give us some guidance on what the ASP looks like. I will only speak to Tetra Tech because that's the one that's being recommended. The others, we can certainly go in camera because there are other experiences that we could share with a couple of the others that if council wanted to go in camera to talk about those reputational aspects of things.
Can you give me any insight as to which 3 properties did not agree to the cost share? Are they all the north ones?
All the north ones.
Okay, so which have very, very little, most of the ASP and what our development concerns are definitely south of those properties.
That's correct.
The next 10 are the critical ones as to how this thing gets played out and defined, because most of those are the ones that are either actively doing some grandfathered development or want to do some form of new development, and they need to know what they can and can't do.
That's correct.
Correct?
Yeah.
The other guys are residential properties that I know each one that you're talking about, they have no desire to be going into any commercial development at any point in time. So I'm not saying their properties just get excluded from the ASP. That's not, they have to be part of it, but I completely understand how they're reluctant to be paying upwards of $20,000 to be part of this. So, you know, us acquiring these properties is, it's the right thing, because I'll go over it again. It was a cluster when that section of properties was in Foothills County, and everybody thought it was in High River, and who owns the road. Foothills County would not let them do much as far as development because they said they wanted to wait until High River annexed it, and so everybody was stuck in purgatory, political purgatory there. So it's the right move that we annex them, and normally with an ASP, we have the landowners, whoever that is, pay for and develop the ASP in conjunction with the town. But out there, when you have 13 landowners with already existing, this isn't greenfield where it's a chunk of stubble and there's one developer landowner that has to do it. That's easy comparatively. When you have 13 with all different interests as to what they want to do with their properties, it becomes and has become very, very difficult, and it has divided a lot of those landowners as to what their thoughts are as to what this ASP was going to look like, and it's started to turn into a fight. And that's why I still believe that it's the right thing that the town take on this ASP, because we were never going to get all of those landowners to agree on one thing just on their own. It wasn't going to happen. They all told me that. The cost share is absolutely important. I'm totally okay with it. But that's why this is different than others, and we don't need to be creating a community fight within our community for no reason. That's why I'm glad you guys are leading this, and we'll get to the end result that's correct. Councillor Barton.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just looking at the package that we have, and it shows that with the map on page 16 that we're just doing the triangular area and the 112th. At one time we had a discussion about trying to include some of the land on the west side of 112th. Where did that end up going?
We removed, we had a brief conversation at the council level, and because there's not a property owner that's willing to move forward with anything on the west side at this point in time, that just staying to the east side was the more appropriate approach. Certainly from a functional servicing strategy, it does make more sense, logical sense, to encompass that whole northeast quadrant from that perspective. But we do think that we know that there's going to be some residential that occurs on that site on the west side at some future date. We're pretty sure that's going to be outside the 20-year window. But it was more inherent to get the issues resolved for this northeast, the east side of 112th resolved before kind of making a much larger project.
Thank you, Chris.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I'm just curious for the 3 objecting properties. I mean, should the day ever come when they sell and a future purchaser is looking to do something there, then that's when do they have to do their own ASP if they're excluded? Is that what happens? What's the next step?
So they be included within the ASP process and included within the ASP area. Now, what may end up happening, and I don't want to presuppose, we may designate them as large agricultural property and bind them to that one site so that when they do want to do something in the future or when they sell, that they have to return to the municipality to rezone the property and redesignate it under the ASP, which then at that point in time we would be able to catch a depreciated portion of the ASP fee at that point. We took a look at other tools as well, because there are tools to register restrictive covenants for sale purposes, so that when they do sell for development purposes, that we could have a restrictive covenant that requires those property owners, the new property owners, to be aware that they have to pay a fee in order to develop further.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Because too, when the ASP and the FSRs are done, and have a new designation, their land value actually increases. So that's why, I mean, it's not in their best interest to not be a part of it, is because if they do sell, even though if they want to live on it just as, I don't know, acreage type living, but when they go to sell, it has increased in value if it has that designation on it.
In theory, when you're dealing with developers that want to see increased density or increased commercial type of use, where we get into difficulty with this neighborhood is that there is competing interests for lower density use that may not necessarily lead to higher land use from that perspective. But until we go through the ASP process, we won't know that. That area, in order for the infrastructure to actually make sense out there, needs to see increased density and needs to see higher and better uses than storage yards for RVs and storage container units. It needs to see something else besides that. But if that's their vision, and that's the vision that we want to continue and support, like the mayor said, that we're trying to avoid conflict out there, but we may get into a conflict basis there because our vision and their vision may be entirely different to make things work.
No further questions? I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Kinghorn that council award the area structure plan functional servicing report to Tetra Tech in the amount of $277,763 excluding GST, and that the 2024 budget be amended to include the ASP FSR project fees as outlined above, and that staff finalize the cost sharing agreements with the owners incorporating the project fee into the cost sharing agreement.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. You have the motion.
All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, David. Renewal of lease agreement with Home Hardware. Alicia?
So my item today is for the renewal of the lease agreement with Home Hardware. We've had this lease in place since 1987. The town owns the parking lot, and we lease the southwest corner of that to Home Hardware that they use for their customer parking. And then we also have the cross-access arrangement that they use to maneuver their large delivery trucks to their bay access door on the east. In past agreements, the cross-access arrangement has included accessing that lumber yard through the large gated entrance on the east side of their parcel, west side of ours, through the BSRC parking lot there. Through the initial planning stages for the pool expansion project, it was determined that access through that entry gate was likely to be compromised if the town moved forward. So in late 2023, Home Hardware notified us that they had acquired the parcel to the west. So when the RFP was awarded in July, it was confirmed that entry point would be inaccessible through the course of construction. So Home Hardware began the development application process so that they could begin using that new parcel for their access in time to align with our project start date. So the last renewal for this one was in 2021. They had expressed an interest in a longer term agreement, which I agree makes sense. However, given the project and the length of the project and the length of the term of the lease, administration recommends entering into another short-term lease so that after our pool expansion project, we have the time to assess the agreement terms and how, if any, are being affected and impacting users of the Recplex. So this new lease today in front of you as presented really would not change. We'd keep the terms as a one-year lease with 2 one-year options to extend, so 3 years total. And then we'd just be removing that one piece of the portion of the lands where they access through that gate. Any questions, let me know.
Questions from council? Seeing none. I will ask for a motion from Councillor Walsh that administration enter into a new lease agreement with Home Hardware Stores Limited for a portion of the lands located at 228 12th Avenue Southeast, High River, Alberta, which is comprised of 3 parcels with legal land descriptions. Plan 8010373, Block 2, Lot 8 MR, Plan 1896 JK, Block 4, and Plan 1896 JK, Block 3, for a parking and cross-access area for 1 year with 2 options to extend for 1 year at the cost of $10 per year, and that council authorizes the mayor and CAO to execute the lease agreement on the above noted terms and conditions.
You have my motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Alicia.
Thanks.
Surplus land, 7th Avenue. Are we going to be done with this after today?
I am hoping we are going to be done after this. So I am here to present the final steps in the project to close and sell the lands that were a road allowance for 7th Avenue west of 3rd Street Southeast. As many of you know, this project has been ongoing for several years, and I am so thankful to Sarah Peck, who is no longer here, for her dedication to get this road allowance closed, ownership transferred to the town, and officially registered with land titles as such. For a high-level review of the project, in 1981, it'll be quick, sorry. The town leased a portion of an unused road allowance to the abutting property owner. Those lands were fenced and appeared as though they were an extension of the private property. In 2015, administration recognized the issue and determined the lease was not valid, as the town did not own the lands. Rather, the road allowances are owned by the province when they are within a town. Over the following number of years, the road closure process has experienced challenges, but was eventually closed and ownership transferred to the town at the end of summer 2024. We are now asking council to declare the easterly portion of the former unopened road allowance for 7th Avenue as surplus to municipal needs. We are also asking that council approve the sale of 2 portions of that easterly end of the former unopened road allowance to the abutting property owners. But this would only occur after they complete the consolidation process by way of a subdivision application. This way, those lands would then, according to land titles, be one contiguous parcel for each of those abutting landowners. It would no longer be this bit of piecemeal out there. The consolidation process does leave the westerly portion of the lands, but those will remain town-owned. They are already maintained by the town as part of the Little Bow Park. So nothing from that point of view would actually change. It would just be what you can visually see at this location now would become the reality according to land titles and property ownership. The parcels will be sold at what was agreed to in 2016 and was also reassessed just earlier this year to confirm that the price still is valid. It's $25,000 for one portion, $35,000 for the other. The reason for the price difference is the one has, not only is there a size difference, but the one does have a water main under it, which we need to protect by a utility right-of-way that has now been also registered on title of that property. So the abutting landowner that will take ownership of that piece does have to ensure that the town can access that area of land as well. So they cannot build a permanent structure on there. That's the high-level history. Are there any questions or comments on this one?
You just condensed, what'd you say, 11 years of your career here working on this? Well done. Any questions from council? I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Smith. The council declare the lands located west of 3rd Street that was the former road allowance for 7th Avenue Southeast with a legal land description of Area A under Plan Number 1710054 to be surplus to the town's needs as per PRO 24-102-02-00, disposition of surplus real property, and that administration sell the easterly portions of the lands at fair market value plus administrative costs to the abutting property owners on the north and south sides once the subdivision application to consolidate the parcels has been approved.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Next one, letter to the government re this doctor funding. Unfortunately, I did not have time to connect with Dr. Weiss and Dr. Fay, so the letter hasn't been finalized yet, but the reason for the letter, as I stated at the last meeting, that myself and MLA Chelsea Petrovic and the Premier, along with Dr. Weiss and Dr. Fay, all met here 2 or 3 weeks ago and discussed a couple of the, not changes to the whole doctor funding thing, which is what's kind of gotten skewed here, but just a couple of changes to how their patient counts are made, and I've talked about that before. The Premier in that meeting stated that she wanted changes made prior to the end of Dr. Paul Parks' term as AMA president at the end of September here. And she agreed to some of the changes. She thought they were important and she understood them. There was a few things that there were things we agreed on, there were things that we didn't agree on. Unfortunately, though, last week, Minister LaGrange made it very clear that there was going to be no changes to any part of this doctor funding right now. And so it became real clear that nothing was going to change. We are going to continue to lose doctors, and we got to continue to advocate for keeping doctors in our community so that our residents have access to a family doctor. So that's what the letter's going to come, because I've been texting with Danielle about the Premier, about what we're actually asking, and she understands that. But we're not looking for any changes to come until sometime next spring, which is going to cause some issues with some of our doctors that are kind of on the fence, whether they're staying or continuing their practices in town or not. So the letter's important. I will get the letter finalized. Our next meeting isn't till October 15th, and you know, this isn't that urgent that I'll get this letter finalized and get Dr. Weiss and Dr. Fay to approve it and put their thoughts to it as well. But it's important that we keep fighting for this and make sure that these changes get implemented at some point in time. So that's all I've got to report on today, and we'll do this again on October 15th. Any board and committee reports council would like to share? See none? So we'll move on into public comments. Carol, you're the only one left. So we'll go to council correspondence requiring action, municipal displays of respect and support request for the Disability Employment Awareness Month proclamation from Inclusion Foothills. So I will ask for a motion from Councillor Barton that council proclaim October 1st to October 31st, 2024 as Disability Employment Awareness Month, and that council authorize the mayor to sign the Town of High River Disability Employment Awareness Month proclamation, and that council authorize the administration building be illuminated red on October 1st, 2024 in recognition and support of Disability Employment Awareness Month.
Yeah, my motion, Mayor.
Can we illuminate it red? Do we have those lights up yet? They're up?
Yeah, they're up.
Cool. All right. Councillor Jones?
I know you said illuminate on October 1st, but it does have an illumination end date. That would be a whole month. We're
not illuminating it the whole month, so
okay.
What are the rules, Jody?
In an effort to avoid duplication, when there is either a week or a month that is being proclaimed or declared, we have agreed to do the first day, or if there is a conflict on that first day, we will determine one and then the next. So it was the best approach that we could come up with, to just give them a day rather than a full month, or sometimes they extend shorter, longer. So.
Good. Any other questions? All in favor? Carried. That's it. Meeting adjourned, 5:03 p.m.